I want to get granular. We just talked about how funny that word is, but I want to provide value off the rip. Tell us what Sequify does. Why would anyone listening, watching care? I'm intrigued. I think that it's a super valuable thing. What do you guys do?
Yeah. So easy way to think about it. We're the back end operating layer in regards to onboarding and HR, document management, mission automation, payroll, training, like that full back end piece where it's really beneficial for us to partner with ProLine, with CRMs where we can obtain that visibility. And then once again, go more granular, go more deep into the full commission structures. We focus on the sales heavy teams that have lots of complexities of rep comp plans, overrides, team leaders, managers, whether they're making upfronts, back ends, getting paid 20 times on a deal. Like that is the thing that we are solving for. One of the taglines is the end of Excel, death to spreadsheets, as I like to call it, because most businesses that we work with, we've actually done some industry benchmarking. It's about 97% are manually calculating their commissions for their sales teams.
Guilty of that for a long time. I say guilty.
And it's no surprise, even some of the largest organizations that we work with that have, over 1,000 sales reps, you do not want to see their spreadsheets. It's 40 pages deep. There's new tabs for all this stuff. Hey, there's this one tweak. We got to make this whole thing. They've got 20 something accounting people managing all of that stuff. And so that's why we set out to build Sequify today, is to be able to solve for that problem. Because myself, I come from the industry. Our two co-founders, they used to run sales organizations in pest control and then solar, and had a lot of turnover, had a lot of reps that were leaving, had a lot of that manual stuff they had to do on the back end. And so it's a two-part of what Sequify is solving for. Is one, it's the systems, right? When I talk to an owner, when I talk to an operations person, it's like, hey, this is where you're actually going to do the thing. But secondary to that, even more important, is the visibility for the reps. Another benchmark report we've done, I'd say close to 100%. I can't say 100% though, but 99% of reps are asking for visibility. They want
Yep.
to see the breakdowns. They want to get that. They want to understand, why was I paid this? How much was it? When is it? Like the full, hey, if I'm a W-2 worker, I get a pay stub, I get a breakdown of hours worked, dollar amount, taxes taken out. We've been able to provide that for the salespeople. Here's the job, here's the cost, here's the commission, here's the overrides, when you're paid, why you're paid, everything A to Z for them.
That last part is super important. It reminds me of a story. So several years ago, before we moved to our second location, I was looking for someone to run and kind of lead the sales for our first location in Athens, kind of outside of Atlanta, and really good sales rep, super great reputation as a sales rep. He's working for a company doing, I think, close to $20 million. They got rolled up into PE and he left eventually. And this is one of the reasons why. So we had 2 3-hour interviews, and great guy. We were aligning with a lot of things. He was straight, canvassing insurance working, traveling all over the place. And he worked on, a team. He wanted to build a team, and he was using a super popular CRM, and he had clarity on where, at least it appeared to be clarity, but it was basically just a fancy spreadsheet. It was a manual report that was run, and he showed it to me. He showed me how much he had been paid year to date and how much was owed to him. But the last part, what you just said, was not clear of when is he getting paid. And I asked him, I was like, how long ago were these jobs? And like, there's no clarity on his app. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, these are like 6 to 9 months ago. I'm like, dude, shocker, he left.
Yep.
But it's like, that is a great example. And that's one example of, we know this, especially in the roofing space and just a lot of these sales organizations, where they promise the world, don't know how to run numbers as a leader, pull up in new boats and new Corvettes, and then all of a sudden the sales reps are not getting paid. What are you seeing? So kind of taking that framework, and I know you've heard those stories before, but like the fastest growing contractors, what do they do differently with like compensation and incentives, and how does Sequify actually help give clarity on that?
The biggest thing is the speed to pay. So, right, we look at the tool as we're on the back end layer. So I need access to the front end layer. I need access to when a job is sold, how the job is sold, what that breakdown looks like. But then if the business knows operationally what their pull through rates are. They understand their margins and they can be able to pay. I mean, I'll take the solar analogy of solar used to pay M1. So milestone one, which is an upfront, which is an advance, also let's take pest control as another example. They pay upfronts. Pest control companies don't make money until about 18 months after the customer signed up, but they're going to pay fast because they want that dopamine hit to be quick for the reps. So that's where we're noticing a lot of that trend is, hey, how fast can we get out an upfront payment? Doesn't have to be 50%. Whatever the amount is, it's how fast can we get that dopamine hit so that the rep realizes, oh, cool, I did this action. I sold the job. This is what I'm getting when I'm getting it. And then having the continuation of the pay come through instead of, oh, cool, I'm going to go recruit a guy. Hey, guess what? You get everything, but only after everything's actually completed. Okay, that might be 2 months. That might be 3 months. Not a lot of people that are shifting into sales have a nest egg that they're sitting on just waiting for. Like, yeah, I don't need to be paid for the next 90 days. Like, cool, I'm totally fine with that. So that's where I noticed a lot of the shift is how fast can we get people paid and how can we have those benchmarks be a lot quicker for them.
It makes total sense. I definitely agree. And the successful contractors that I see out there are paying as fast as possible. This is a huge thing. Like the dopamine hit's real. Sales reps have a specific personality type. They need to hit. There's a lot of dopamine hits they need throughout that entire process. So I know I get asked this. I know you get asked this question, and I see it tons in Facebook groups. So what kind of commission plans? Let's talk about roofing because roofing is all over the place. But what kind of commission plans create the best behavior from sales reps?
Yeah, so I kind of default back to the saying of you want to incentivize the behaviors that you want more of, right? Do you want to incentivize better profit margin? Is that what the company is focused on? Because at the end of the day, every company focus is different. Hey, we're trying to be more lean. We don't need to go do 50 million in revenue. We need to do 11 this year and we need to keep our margins really good. So let's look at that metric and let's build around that. Other sides are, yeah, we want to go do 50, 60, 70 million. We want to bring on 40, 60, 80 reps. So now we need to incentivize growth and we need to put in an override structure. That's also one of the pieces where, coming from our standpoint, we're able to see across, really 6 of the major industries out there that are in door-to-door sales and direct sales and taking what they're able to do and then helping other companies across industries. So one example with that, with recruiting, I'll go back to a pest control company as an example. They've got 1,000 people out there. They've got, 100 something different teams. They've got managers that are making overrides on all of this. And yes, they still need to go do their personal production, but it's almost more of an incentive to build and recruit and have those structures. So kind of going back to the original question of where do we notice this? One of my favorite pieces in the platform is what's called tiering. So different revenue amounts for different commission amounts. Meaning jobs 1 through 5, I'm paid this amount. Jobs 5 through 10, I'm paid this. Jobs 10 through 15, I'm paid a different amount so that there's that much more of an incentive. So it's not just, oh, cool, a storm hit. Let's go, do 30 deals this month and maybe 0 the next month. But now it's how do we have those driving pieces to help them? Hey, I can go make more if I do produce more, if that's the way that the company's moving, right?
Makes sense. So quantity, there can be tiered for quantity of contracts sold. I know a lot of people they talk about 10, 50, 50 split and they talk about 10% of revenue. Another smart thing that I've seen, it is complicated if you don't have a really good system in place like Sequifi. What do you guys do or see this commonly where certain profit margin hits? Are you able to identify profit? Like if you connect with ProLine, are you able to see certain profit margins if there's flexibility in those margins to generate the correct commission based on the profit margin?
Yep. That's one of the biggest things is, I mentioned tiering with volume. That's the easy example, right? Hey, I'll be honest, you can probably go do that in a spreadsheet, nothing crazy in there, but yeah, do it with 20, 40, 50 people. It's a different story. But now building in different kickers at different profit margins. So once again, I go back to that first company. Hey, we only need to do 6 million in revenue this year, but we want to sell jobs that are only above 45%. Guess what? If you sell a job that's above 50, there's some extra cheese on that in addition to the normal commission. But will you sell a job that's in this market with this margin, with this product and material? Let me go 3 layers deep for that person. So that's really the beauty and why, I've loved being in software is we can give that data visibility to an owner. PE's coming into the space right now, and it has been. What do a lot of these guys come from, right? Investment banking, the background of numbers and data, and let me see all this. We can help provide those layers now. What are the best locations? What is the actual pay by position? What are the averages? How long does it take for you to recruit a new person, get them onboarded, get their first pay stub? What does that paycheck actually look like for them? So now you have all these data points, and then it really just helps you with recruiting, with retention, with growth, because you can see that much deeper into the business.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So kind of on the flip side of what we've been talking about, the best things, what are some common mistakes that you see they made to like incentivize the wrong things? Because I see this a lot. I'm like scratching my head, like, why are you asking this question? Do you see like common themes and like, let's incentivize this? Do you see that in the companies you work with?
I mean, not to name names, of course, but it happens. The biggest thing I'll see is non-revenue producing activities that they want to incentivize on, or actually incentivizing the wrong things. Like, hey, just because it is a larger ticket amount doesn't actually mean I should be paid more on that job, because what if the margins are actually worse? Right. So
Yep.
once again, incentivizing what are the specific things that you as the business need to be looking at? Is it overall account volume? Is it profit margin on those? Is it, hey, we're trying to help our sales guys go double their volume or actually double their commissions, right? Like what's the lever that you're trying to look at for the business? And, main ones, like I said, just non-revenue producing, incentivizing the wrong things, whether it's like total dollar amount versus actual margin on the deal. And then, I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones, but I just kind of let those go out of my mind.
Yeah, that's funny. This gets me thinking about like the tiered systems with profit margin. And I did a whole series on like after the sale, the production part of it is the job is to protect the profit, right? Like don't damage stuff,
Yep.
waste material, all these things are, let's say you've hit your 40% profit margin. Your goal is to keep that. It can work both ways, right? So through your system and through a lot of people, what's the best practices for when, because you want to get the dopamine hit, right? It's kind of conflicting mindset and philosophy because you want to get paid quickly. You sold a job for 40% profit on paper, but then after the job, you either do better or worse, because it does happen both ways where you protected, like there's a lot of jobs that I sold and my team sold that like we thought we hit a margin and we had a huge return because we were able to be more efficient, whatever the reason was. How should the owners compensate? How should that work through your system for the sales reps? And on top of that, if there is a project manager, not a sales rep, is there something in the system that shows like, hey, you did protect the profit, you protect the profit on the job. How do you see project managers getting compensated to like when they're keeping the job profitable and getting reviews? Like, do you see that commonly with what you guys do?
So one of the key pieces there is like, let's take the job as a whole. There can be 10 people paid on that job, all having different roles. Let's just say, for example, there's a setter, there's a closer, there's a manager, there's a regional manager. So those guys are making overrides. Then you have the production manager, the project manager, you have somebody in QA, you have more internal people that are on those. And that's the importance of incentivizing, right? And not just saying, oh, cool, here's the hourly wage that we're paying you guys. It's giving each one of those people their margins and their tiering specific to what they are in control of. So let's take the project manager on there, having a threshold. Hey, if it does above this, great. If it falls below this, well, guess what? You're also dinged on that because that is applicable to your role and what you're actually in charge of. And then to the second part of what you're saying, the dopamine hit, that's where we're able to leverage milestone payments. So the way I like to look at it is, let's take traditional high ticket sales. Oh, cool. I go sell something for 100 grand. I make 20% commission. I'm going to make a $20,000 check on that versus I can make that same 20,000, but now it's going to be chunked up so I can actually get it faster. So I can get paid up front, let's call it, $250 when this part happens. And then this additional milestone happens in ProLine that pushes over to Sequifi, and then that triggers that next payment. So that way at the end, we're within enough margin to say, hey, if they did mess up, we have enough reconciliation on the backside to true up and be like, cool, maybe you should have made an extra 5,000, but you're only going to make 1,500 on this remainder. But that's that last one versus being like, oh, you're only going to get everything once you're actually at the very end right here. And it's going to be 2 months for you to actually get paid. Now I can give you more chunks throughout. So it builds up more of a pipeline, builds up more recurring and actual earnings for the end user.
Makes sense. Oh, let's get granular with this. Oh, your sales rep, this is that scenario that you just mentioned is happening. You got milestones. Most in roofing specifically, I don't know how people break it up, but it's usually one or two milestones. It's usually not a bunch. The transparency behind that difference is pretty huge. That's where you run into a lot of issues. It's like the why. Why was this done this way? Is there like a sales manager note there? So let's call it $10,000 commission. You get paid $5,000 first milestone, and they're waiting for a job to complete, everything paid in full to get paid the final $5,000. But something happened it changed the profitability of the job. Where are you seeing that transparency benefit? The biggest thing I'm kind of getting at is, what makes top sales reps stay with one company instead of jumping ship? And this is a huge reason. It's the lack of transparency. Well, like, how does Sequifi help with that? So we can actually, because it's usually communication within internally and transparency within in that communication. What are you seeing that's the best practice for that? Like, how are you seeing somebody making a high ticket commission, like, and this is the reason why?
I'm a firm believer that the business owners out there are not intentionally trying to screw their people.
Yep.
Right? It's just they don't know how to show them appropriately.
Yes.
And I'm not saying let's go show them exactly the cost on everything, exactly the breakdown and up to each business owner, right? You guys can do what you want to on there, but giving the reps a place to go that they can trust and know that, hey, whatever is reflected in here is going to have the details, is going to have the breakdown, and that I am going to be paid that amount. Because, hey, if I'm expecting to make $5,000 and then Friday hits and payroll's being ran and I only see $2,000 in my bank account, of course I am going to be livid. But if I know 2 weeks in advance that 5,000 did drop down to 2,000 and I knew that 2 weeks in advance, I'm not going to be mad. I'll have questions for sure. So I'm not going to change the overall behavior, right? But I'm going to give more visibility into it. So now instead of, hey, Friday payroll hits, I'm answering phone calls at 8:00 at night on a Friday versus, actually doing something fun. I can now handle that question way before because reps are able to see it, able to understand it. We've got a whole ticketing system, right, in the platform where, hey, go submit this ticket, go verify, go look at this. So now when an owner wants to have these conversations and the reps are like, hey, why is this? That's the first line of defense. Well, did you go read through it? Did you see the breakdown? Do you understand why the things happened that were on here? So once again, preempting a lot of that negative connotation around why did things get changed versus just getting in front of it, right? Getting way in front of it and saying, here's what happened. Here's why it's been this way. Let me show it to you firsthand. And then let's go have the proactive conversation. What could have been better, right? Was it an internal thing? Was it something within your control? Was it something outside of that? But now at least I have somewhere to go that the end rep, and to your point of retention, that's the biggest piece, right? My favorite thing in the system is the projected earnings. How much have you yet to be paid on your jobs, right? Let's see what that pipeline is start to build up and accrue. But then also what are the date timestamps of when you're supposed to be paid on those pieces? So going back to the how do we help? How do we help give that rep that feeling and that knowledge of, hey, yeah, I'm not getting screwed out because I can see the breakdown. And once again, I go back to the 5,000 to 2,000 example. Stuff does happen across all businesses. Profitability changes, things, hey, things get broken. We got to, account for that. But seeing it and having that breakdown takes that piece of the puzzle out of that conversation of why did my pay get changed? They can see it way in advance instead of being reactive. They're now proactive.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. It just keeps coming back to, I keep thinking about different size companies and different revenue targets. Been doing a lot of smaller pieces of content about the average roof size in America, the average sold roof. I know it's all over the place. You go to Phoenix and my friend's selling $120,000 roofs every day. And you go, middle America, they're 13 grand. And it's all over the place. But for most roofing contractors, they're pretty small. I mean, vast majority, 96% of them are really, really small, doing 3 million or less. But the ones that were trying to build a really successful team, kind of the benchmark is, it used to be like $500,000 sales, and then it was 750. And then it's like, we're talking about revenue per capita and like what makes a profitable, scalable business. And what, obviously we're talking about commission structures too. Can that person survive and thrive with their compensation?
Here's how roofers make it home for dinner every single night without losing a single sale, even when they're one-man shows. Automate your communication with ProLine, the only communication-first CRM for roofers. Because when you fix your communication, you'll sell more jobs. Your weekends will smell more like sunscreen and backyard barbecues than that crappy gas station coffee. And all you got to do is ask these roofers.
Before we had about 200% growth, and I attribute that to incorporating ProLine.
But just with one automation, I was able to get 25 Google reviews.
It's been absolutely insane how quickly we were able to grow.
Now, ProLine's not going to win the beauty pageant, but it will save your Saturday. Now, back to the show.
I kind of came to a general consensus is that you got to sell $1.3 million if you're a roofing salesperson. That's 100 roofs at $13,000 a roof. You got to do that. Like, that's kind of the deal. It's 2 roofs a week. It's a kind of the benchmark now, I think, for most. And that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but whether you're doing canvassing, direct sales, you're self-gen, you're providing leads, whatever the reasoning be, that's kind of been my benchmark for revenue per capita that makes the most sense, as long as you're hitting the profit margins you need to. And that is all over the place too. In that scenario, let's say you've got 10 reps and they all are hitting that. It's $13 million. In that kind of a company, what do you see? If they're high ticket, one-day jobs, what's the best commission that you see that makes the most sense for something like that? Because that's kind of a dream for a lot of roofing contractors, that kind of scenario. And what I see, even our customer base, is that the revenue per capita is not that. But I think it makes the most sense you should scale smart and hitting those profit margins. I'm not even going to go on a soapbox about profit margins because we were really, really high and people thought we were lying. We were so high as like this. And we weren't even as high as like the big players, like the huge. We were the highest in our markets, but we were not even these national brands that selling crazy, $2,000 a square kind of deals. We weren't even doing that. What are you seeing makes the most sense in that scenario where you got 10 reps? What makes those reps stay, the company thrive? What are you seeing in your feedback with Sequifi?
Yeah. There's 2 pieces I'll hone in on. The first one is going to be, what are they in charge of, right? And how do we compensate against that versus, hey, there's things outside of my realm. I don't want to be affected by those, but am I directly affected by my production and by the thing that I am in control of? So that's where I go back to the tiering mechanism, because it's, do we want to look at this as a monthly? Do we want to look at this as an annual? Do we want to look at it quarterly? Does it make sense for that type of team and that type of company to go put on that volume across a whole year, summertime only, right? So setting those benchmarks and tiering it out, because you're talking kind of about the 300 Spartans, but a group of 10 guys that are all hitting the numbers, doing really good at what they're doing. So that's where I go to my second point is, what is the progression path for them? What does that company look like that they want to do? Do they want to expand? Do they want to go now have 2 teams? Do they want to have 3 teams? Do they want to build? And so leveraging the tiering side of it for overall volume. Hey, I get kickers that can reset every month. So I can have that incentivizing every single month. I can do it every week. I can do it every day, right? I can do it every quarter, however often they want to, because the other benefit of having, a solid core group like this is they're all going to be very competitive. Everybody wants to see the leaderboard. They want to know I'm going to be on top and, who's crushing it this month versus last. So that goes into the second part, once again, of the progression. Where does this now go? Because a lot of things that I've seen over the year, specifically in roofing is, you mentioned it, a lot of company, 96% are doing less than 3 million. I see a lot of reps turned owners overnight because a company doesn't have a progression path for that rep. They hit the cap. Hey, I went and did 2 million this year. I'm on my 10-50-50. Well, the only way I can go make more money is if I just go sell more deals. So I'm just going to go get my own contracts. I'm going to go get my own licensing, and I'm going to go get my own truck and do this myself. Instead, have that progression path for the reps. Show them what it looks like to go from the top performing rep into management, into ownership, into profit sharing, right? Any sort of margin splits for them. But that's a lot of the piece that we see missing, where I've seen in other industries, they have that. It's a rinse and repeat. You go from here to here to here to here, and you hit all these benchmarks. And then, it's almost better for you to be a regional manager at a company versus trying to start over and do your own thing and fail for the first couple of years until you possibly get there, right? So it's always, how do we set that progression path for them so that they don't have to look at just leaving to go make more money and have a better lifestyle. It's how do I go from where I'm at to that next phase?
Yeah. I mean, speaking from experience, it's really hard to start a business. You don't make money for a long time. And I love seeing people succeed. I love seeing people in the roofing space win, but it's not as easy as you think. Even with amazing storm activity and you're doing a bunch of money revenue wise, are you actually keeping it? I mean, the stats don't lie. I mean, it's 2 years is a rough first 2 years. And you may be making good commission 1 year, and then for 2 years, more volume, but less money personally. And just word to the wise out there watching or listening. It's not just sales. There's a whole other aspect to it. The other part, this actually is making me think about the inside outside sales rep kind of movement. Fortunately we had this is where 1 inside sales rep for every 2 outside sales reps. And so a lot of companies either have a straight salary, but very well compensated salary, and maybe a small commission for the inside sales rep, but they're making the job of the outside sales rep much easier so they can continue focusing on sales activities. That's very interesting to see. I would be interested to see that, because that's also, to your point, if you have that system set up, it's not just, I can go hire a virtual assistant and they can just be my inside sales rep. You can do that, but there's a whole bunch of training. You have to understand that the compensation that's happening, getting paid to that person, and they're on payroll. And like there's a whole bunch of layers to it that's more of a quality of life system and process that's set up for any sales rep out there that's trying to I can just do this better. I can just sell more. There's a lot more to it than just selling more.
And one thing I'll touch on with what you just mentioned there is, once again, I'll take the other industries, because that's where I feel like we provide a lot of value into the roofing space, is also just what else has happened. And I mean, my background, I started in pest control for 5 years, worked with Sam Taggart for a couple of years. I got exposed to roofing back in 2019. I had no idea what it was. I came from a pest control company that had 1,500 sales reps, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the norm. And then teaching, other guys where it's like, hey, we have 5 guys, like what's a competition? What's a morning meeting? What's some of this? So being able to see that, but now giving them an opportunity to once again focus on what they're good at. So the specific thing of what you said, the 2 to 1, I'll take solar as the example. There's project managers. They have they call it a concierge service. Hey, once the salesperson is finished doing the sales piece and all the little paperwork and details and calling into the licensing and calling the, cities and offices, that's handled by somebody else. Sometimes it's taken out of the commission. Sometimes it's split amongst commission, company margins, all across the board. But that's obviously why a system like ours, we can handle those pieces simply to put it back onto the sales rep to focus on what the sales rep is best at doing. I see a lot in the forums. There was a post a couple days ago, somebody asking, should I stick with the 10-50-50 or should I go with a 10% of gross? And I don't have to be the project manager. I don't have to do it thereafter. What's going to help me make more? And so that's where it's, hey, once again, let's look at the data. What is going to help you do more? As a salesperson, are you better at owning everything A to Z, or are you better at the front end piece of it and then potentially missing out on, let's call it maybe a couple grand per deal because you're not doing everything, but because somebody else can handle that, can you now go do more volume? And that's where you look at, how do we go expand the company? How do we go from one location to multiple locations? We have that infrastructure layer, right? We have that data that we can look at and report on to say, yes, this is a smart move, or no, let's actually stick with what we're doing because that's actually costing us way more money over here, where a lot of times it's I'm just going to run this in the spreadsheet and, oh shoot, I overpaid commissions this year by $500,000 because I hired 4 more people, but we actually weren't doing what we needed to do in that case.
Yeah. And I used to see this kind of binary, one's better than the other. But I think I did a podcast with Jacob McCollum a couple weeks ago, and he did no experience. He was one of those marketer guys, and he went and sold for a roofing company to be like, I'm going to do it. First 4 months, did $1 million in sales. Second 4 months, did another $1 million in sales. Did $2 million in 8 months. First time, no support staff, did everything cradle to grave. Self-admittedly, he's like, I'm not even that great of a sales rep. I just had a process. He's very process driven. And so I used to think, sales, hand off the project manager. That's the best way with an inside sales rep. And that's a great way. It is a great way. One thing that he mentioned though, is that he got so many referrals because he was so hands-on with every single job. That's like, it just exponentially multiplies. So I say that because I don't know if there's a better system. I know that a lot of people have said that the multiple people in the scenarios is better, but like he's proof that it works really well. He had a ton of, his close rate was way too high, honestly. And if you watch the episode, his margin was too low. He said he was 30% profit margin, but it's him and he's not sharing the profit. So it worked for the company. He needs to be closer to 40% or more. And he knows that, but like he was a 57% close rate because he's getting referrals. And so like, then how you do the math? What do you do? Like, what if you drop the close rate because you don't have quite as a connection with that homeowner because you have a project manager now that never met. And then you got to keep looking at your numbers. Basically, you got to know those things.
Exactly. It all goes back to the data. It goes back to, can I see this and what can I incentivize for? Like what do I want to go build around? What type of business do I want to build? Do I want to build a small one that's insanely profitable that I'm trying to sell to PE, or I want a buyer, or I want something? Or do I want just hey, yeah, let's go take over, right? Let's be the name in the region. Let's have 100 salespeople. I want people knocking doors and talking to 50 homeowners a day. Or yeah, I want to be the guy in this small city, in this neighborhood that everybody knows my name personally. So it's how do you want to go build the business, but leveraging the data and being able to look at that. One thing that we're able to do in our platform is having a temporary allotment of time for a special comp plan, meaning I'm going to go test something. I want to go run something. I want to have a 2-week sprint where everybody's comp is going to be different, or just these people in this market, in this office, and let's go test that. And let's go see what happens, see how the commissions change. Because once again, if I can have access and see the data and see the breakdown and then see what the production looks like, well, then I know where I can start to guide my ship. But if I'm just running willy-nilly and it's like, hey, 1 week we did 50, the next week we did 85, this must be working. Like, nah, that's not necessarily true, because you got to go a lot more granular and look at the details of it to then decide.
That makes sense. Yeah, it makes me nervous just thinking about switching comp plans, because that's a huge thing people complain about. Like, it's okay. It's not a huge thing as long as you're transparent. As long as you give them a tool to understand how much they're getting paid, when they're getting paid, all those milestone things are super important. That it just goes back to transparency again. It's like, if you change something, you better be 100% clear, overly communicate to your team that like, this is the reason why we want you to win. We're testing something and let's see if we can, hit those dopamine hits better. Do you enjoy your job better because these things, these parameters are different in this way? Yeah, I get that question asked so much of me. It's like, I don't know, man. Like there's so many more pieces to the puzzle than just you and an owner. Like there's so many more things, and the market's different, the geography, storm, retail, all those things are.
And it's one thing, like, we've got a bunch of case studies of companies that started, and when they were with us, what was their starting layer of sales reps? And then after a year, 18 months, 2 years, how much have they been able to grow? And obviously I know it's not all because of our system, right? But it's just, hey, what do I not have to worry about anymore? And how can I use that as my foundation? So when I have a recruiting meeting and I'm trying to poach people from this company or bring somebody on that's never done this before, gone are the days of come make 6 figs and, come knock a couple doors and you're going to, be a millionaire overnight. I can show them. I can give them the breakdowns. I can say, hey, on average, here's where first year sales reps start out. Hey, on average, here's where experienced people are. So it leverages that as the recruiting tool. Here's where we can now grow. We've seen companies grow from 30 to 150, right? Even larger than that, because I have this infrastructure. I don't have to worry about these things when, things start to break. It's like, okay, well, how do I now go mold that? I've got the data to go see it. And I'm not saying go out there and change your comp plan every 2 weeks. Trust me, I hate it. But I'm like, at the end of the day, you have that ability to come see what can be changed and how can you do it for the better versus just going off of gut feeling. So I don't know will get you so far.
Yeah. I always think about the people that run businesses. It's usually the smaller companies, but they don't. I had a conversation yesterday actually with somebody who's like, I just don't want to spend time setting up my CRM. I just don't have time. I'm like, it's the whole, like, this is the whole thing. Like, this is the reasoning just wasn't there. And then, then they ask questions like, how do I recruit crews? And how do I recruit sales reps? Like all these things is like everything you just said takes work. That's not sweating on a roof. It takes effort. It takes thought. It takes moving forward and creating these systems. But like, I just never had an issue recruiting because I didn't have as amazing system as what you guys have, but it was just very clear that the culture that we have, this is part of that culture. People care about where they work and what their day looks like. And like, it's not just the compensation. It's the understanding of what you're building those dreams for them. Like I can buy the boat if I do this, and it's very clear and it's fair. And it's again, just transparent. It's when I see those questions in the groups, I'm like, how do you hire? I got to hire a new sales rep. It's just so easy. Like when you have a system like this is just what you just said. This is average. This is somebody who's been doing it for 2 years, 3 years. This is like when you can show somebody in real time, this is what actually happens. You don't even have to recruit. You're going to just attract the best people because they're going to, whether on paper, the other compensation plan is better, as well as I do in the roofing space specifically. That example I gave before was a great example. He was already making 6 figures that year. They owed him another 6 figures from 6 to 9 months. It's like, great. It sounds great on paper, but you're not actually getting the money. Like, and then he was golden handcuffs, tail as old as time, won't leave. And like, this is just doesn't work. What you guys are doing is really valuable, and it gives, it also helps. I mean, I'm kind of dogging owners that are not good with numbers, but it helps the owners too. Because if you have the transparency as an owner, and a manager, you're like, oh, we're actually not we don't have this money. They're just bank accountants. Like, oh wait, the money has to go out too. And it helps owners not go out of business.
Yeah.
And it's just better all around. It's just a better business ownership. It's kind of what at ProLine we talk about communication. So we're not necessarily forcing the hand, but we're strongly encouraging with a platform to communicate better. The way I see it and getting to know what Sequifi does is that you are doing the same thing with compensation and transparency on the number side of things. You kind of forcing the hand to make the right decisions because you have the clarity. Like it's really, really valuable to have tools like this as an owner and as a sales rep and as a sales manager to understand all those things so you can make good decisions about every day.
Yeah. It's not if software is going to exponentially make your business better or make you as a business owner better, but it's what is that software going to do and allow you to do? How are you going to leverage it? That's the multiplier effect. Hey, if, I talked to a lot of newer owners as well that are like, hey, I'm starting this thing out. I heard about you guys. What does this look like for me now? And I'm like, first question, why did you want to become an owner? Did you want to become an owner so you can be the back end person doing all this stuff and doing all these systems? Like, no, I want you to get back to the things that you're really good at and why you became an owner, which is scaling, which is recruiting, which is training, which is selling, which is being on that front end piece that a software system isn't going to replace. Allow software and allow tools, ProLine, Sequifi, to be that infrastructure, be that layer to give you the insights so that you can go back to doing what you're best at. No offense, not a lot of great people are just doing spreadsheet stuff. You're not going to hire somebody that's Microsoft Excel proficient and can go run all these calculations and do this. Like our system, something else, whatever it is, leverage the system to get back to the work that you know you need to be doing so you can go scale the business.
Love that. I love it. I can think about one of our newest customers who's been posting videos publicly of like all these stages of the business. And I love it so much because he's in Florida. He's talking about all the things he has to do, website, everything, licensing, insurance, all those things. And I just think people who are starting out like that, they just need to understand like it takes a lot of that type of work for a long time. I mean, he's been doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, posting each step. And it's just like, I'm going to try to, I've tried to get him on the podcast already because he's like, he's a little camera shy, but I'll get him on there. I will, because he's bringing huge value that he doesn't even realize that 99.9% of any business owner doesn't do. And then he's posting about what it takes. It humanizes him, and it makes the reality of what you and I see every day about these pieces of the puzzle. It's just work, and it's different work. It's like you got to set it all up. Speaking of that, if somebody is trying to reach out to you guys, roughly how long is the onboarding process for you?
I mean, it's fairly quick. Like as I mentioned, right, we're a full backend layer. So there's a lot of data that we need to collect because we do the onboarding, we do the documents, we can do background checks. We have a recruiting pipeline and dashboards. We can set up all that backend layer to it. And then when the users get onboarded, they'll input their bank account information, tax, right, to do all the payroll and everything. But we're looking right around, 3 to 4 weeks until a company's in here, everything's stood up, which is, to your point, yes, there's work behind that. But also I go back to, well, what's the multiplier of that? Now that I got a system in place, how much faster can I go recruit somebody? Do I need to go manually send them a DocuSign? Do I need to go manually log in the Chase Bank and go input their direct deposit? Do I need to go do this piece, do that? I can get documents in here, input the person I'm going to hire and get them in sub 1 minute. They're in the system. They're ready to rock and roll. They have their ProLine login. They're going out. They're giving the front end. They're selling the deal. Everything's ready and live for them that fast. That once again, how does that allow them to go back to what they need to be doing? Scaling, recruiting, building, get the system set up fairly quickly.
Love it. Well, it's been an awesome conversation. What else do people know about you guys?
Yeah. Out here in Utah, in the mecca of all the fun door-to-door stuff, really expanding all direct sales, all heavy commission. So, we're in the mortgage industry, we're getting into insurance, we're getting into real estate. So a lot of these other pieces as well, but really with the roofing space, I look at what are businesses trying to do and how are they trying to evolve. Every company, every business I talk to that we brought on, growth. It's one of their main things, right? Hey, I want to grow, I want to scale, I want to do this. So how do we help be that back-end layer to allow you to go do this? And that's where you can come in and leverage. There's pieces of the tool, just like any software, where you're like, hey, I'm not going to use that. I don't need that. But where we can kind of give some of those insights of, like, we built the feature for a reason. Here's how you can leverage something like this, like doing an indirect override, doing a manager override, doing something additional outside of what you might just know as, hey, here's the only comp plan and only way to do something. We're starting to produce a lot more industry-wide reports, do more benchmarking, give more of that layer to everybody. It's the free content. Got to get it out there so people can see it. But once again, allowing for that growth. Like, that's at the end of the day, you just want to help support businesses grow.
Love it. Well, again, I think you guys provide huge value. Excited for our partnership at ProLine and Sequifi. You guys look out for it. There'll be links in all the comments and all those things that I'm sure we'll be about 1 billion clips of this. But Riley, thanks for coming on, man. It was really, really fun to talk to you again. And everybody, thanks for watching the Big Roots podcast.
Appreciate it.